Wednesday, three of the big tech titans, Jack Dorsey, Mark Zuckface, and Sundar Pichai, appeared for another virtual Senate hearing to answer questions about their election interference. This after they censored the true story about the Biden family's corrupt dealings with foreign governments. And if you thought Mark Zuckerberg had a bad haircut, you haven't seen Jack Dorsey lately, who showed up as Laura Loomer accurately described looking like Osama bin Laden. This is the CEO of one of the most powerful companies in the world. This is a man worth several $billions. This is the man who decides what we can and cannot say and see on social media. I only made it about 30 minutes into the hearing before falling asleep, but thankfully Ted Cruz raised some very relevant points.
The three witnesses we have before this committee today collectively pose, I believe, the single greatest threat to free speech in America and the greatest threat we have to free and fair elections. Mr. Dorsey, does Twitter have the ability to influence elections?
No.
You don't believe Twitter has any ability to influence elections?
No, we are one part of a broad spectrum of communication channels that people have.
So you're testifying to this committee right now that Twitter, when it silences people, when it censors people, when it blocks political speech, that has no impact on elections?
People have choice of other communication channels.
Do you have the power to force a media outlet? Let's be clear. The New York Post isn't just some random guy tweeting. The New York Post has the fourth highest circulation of any newspaper in America. The New York Post is over 200 years old. The New York Post was founded by Alexander Hamilton. And your position is that you can sit in Silicon Valley and demand of the media that you can tell them what stories they can publish and you can tell the American people what reporting they can hear. Is that right?
No, this was every person, every account, every organization that signs up to Twitter agrees to a terms of service. Terms of service is
so
published.
Media outlets must genuflect and obey your dictates if they wish to be able to communicate with readers. Is that right?
No, not at all. We recognized an error in this policy and specifically the enforcement.
You're still blocking their posts. You're still blocking their posts. Right now, today, you're blocking their posts.
We're not blocking the post. Anyone can tweet.
Can the New York Post post on their Twitter account?
If they go into their account.
No is your answer to that. No, unless they genuflect and agree with your dictates. Let me ask you something. You claimed it was because of a hacked materials policy. I find that facially highly dubious and clearly employed in a deeply partial way. Did Twitter block the distribution of the New York Times' story a few weeks ago that purported to be based on copies of President Trump's tax returns?
We didn't find that a violation of our terms of service and this policy in particular because it was reporting about the material. It wasn't distributing the material.
Okay, well, that's actually not true. They posted what they purported to be original source materials, and federal law, federal statute makes it a crime, a federal felony, to distribute someone's tax returns against their knowledge. So that material was based on something that was distributed in violation of federal law, and yet Twitter gleefully allowed people to circulate that. But when the article was critical of Joe Biden, Twitter engaged in rampant censorship and silencing.
And again, we recognized errors in that policy. We changed it within 24 hours.
Mr. Dorsey, who the hell elected you and put you in charge of what the media are allowed to report and what the American people are allowed to hear? And why do you persist in behaving as a Democratic super PAC, silencing views to the contrary of your political beliefs?
Let's give Mr. Dorsey a few seconds to answer that, and then we'll have to conclude this segment.
Well, we're not doing that.
This is why it's critical that you vote next week, not just for President Trump, but for your Republican senators and your Republican members of the House. Because the only way that we're going to have a chance to amend Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act and stop these people is if we take back the House and hold on to the Senate. While Ted Cruz did a great job grilling our overlords, the Democrats are upset with them too, but for entirely different reasons. They want them to censor us even more. The New York Post is still locked out of their Twitter account and has been for 2 weeks now. The only way that they're going to be able to tweet ever again is if they agree with Twitter that they broke their terms of service and then delete the story about the Biden family corruption, leading the New York Post to print this as their latest cover. And speaking of censorship, liberals lost their mind this week when Joe Rogan brought Alex Jones back on the podcast. I only watched a few minutes of the interview, but I couldn't help but notice that Joe interrupted Alex 3 or 4 times to fact check him and stop him from going down a rabbit hole.
See, this is why you need someone that's like a fact checker right next to you.
No,
Going slow down. Step by step, we're going to fact check every one of these
is well known.
But I want to make sure. Okay, well, you're going to go down another rabbit hole, you son of a
I don't care if he grows up wants to be a say he's a
Again,
girl.
rabbit hole. Let's not go down these
But I'm
rabbit holes.
saying it's not science. They go, the science is settled. There's not 2 genders.
Okay.
B and S.
Okay, hold on. Let's not go down that road.
And then the next day, it appeared that the snowflakes got their way because the episode was mysteriously missing from the Spotify archives. But then their hopes were crushed when Joe posted on Instagram claiming that there were some cache issues with the file and that his producer deleted it and immediately re-uploaded it, hoping to solve the alleged problem. I don't really believe him, and I think that a moderator took it down, and then there was an immediate power struggle within the company, and then it was restored, and in my opinion, Joe doesn't want to bite the hand that feeds him, and so he's going along with the cover story that there was a problem with the file. In other censorship news, CNN hasn't mentioned literally a single word about Tony Bobulinski, Hunter Biden's former business partner. If you go to the search bar on CNN's website and enter in his name, there are, of course, 0 results. Thankfully, he sat down for a very lengthy interview with Tucker Carlson early this week, most of which you can find on Fox News' YouTube channel. Mr. Bobulinski isn't just making allegations, he has all the receipts, and he's been a lifelong Democrat. So he's not coming forward for any political reason. He only did so after Adam Schiff said that he was part of a Russian disinformation plot. Which reminds me, you can get this nice Russian bot shirt from my online store at markdice.com. Or if that's not your style, pick up a Contains Facts and Opinions Some May Find Offensive shirt, or the classic Liberalism Find a Cure shirt, or any of my awesome designs, available in a t-shirt, long sleeve, and a hoodie. So head on over to markdice.com or click the link in the description below and check them out.